Hey guys, this is the Blue Collar Future Podcast. I'm your host, Jaden Robinson, and we've got Kipp Bender with us today. Kipp, how's it going?
Going good, man.
We had some technical difficulties there for a second, but this is a little bit of a redo. Anyways, Kipp, we're just going to go right into it because we were talking before we started recording, but let's get right into it and start with what you do. What do you do?
Well, I do a few things. Just in general, as far as life in general, I'm a husband and a father, married to my high school sweetheart. I'll be 40 years old next year. So we've been married 20 plus years. And so we've had a literal lifetime together at 40 years old. So that's one of the things that I'm most proud of in my life. You know, business aside, family is more important. So I'm very, very, very proud of that. But as far as work goes, own a couple of businesses. One is a tile and bathroom renovation company called Rocksteady Tile Company. And then I've recently acquired a cabinet company, a local cabinet company that will be called Rocksteady Cabinet Company. And the acquisition process and transition process has been quite grueling, so I'm pretty tired as we speak. It's been some very long days and still a lot of work to do. So other than that, we also do some social media stuff that we've been doing the past couple of years, kind of growing there and working some avenues. But yeah, that's what I do, man. I build things and provide for people.
That's good. That's cool. I think cabinet and tile, that would be a pretty good combination, I'm imagining.
Well, it felt natural, right? Because they're in the same world. And so the ultimate goal is to have kind of not, I wouldn't say an empire, but the business model is that you're all inclusive of interiors, right? So if I own the cabinet company, I own the tile company, you own a few other, bring a few other trades in there as well. You can offer a full service.
Countertops and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, that's cool. I think there's some companies around here that have, you know, something like that. And it's always good because a lot of people want to just deal with one person or one company to kind of deal with that way. I know on our house, on our exterior, we built a house last year. We had one company deal with the whole exterior. So it was almost like I was subcontracting a general contractor. Felt like, because I basically didn't have to do anything. Like they just came in and took care of the entire exterior, the stucco, the siding, the stone, everything. So it was cool.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Yeah. For me, the cabinets is something that is able to scale, whereas tile business it's not very scalable. It's all, it's labor heavy. You can only scale with additional personnel. And then when you add personnel, you have to add additional management and more headaches. So I'd been searching for a scalable business that could utilize a sales force and installation team, and that's what made sense.
So, as in cabinets, you guys are making them and then doing install and stuff as well?
So the original company, Lakeside Woodworking, he got his start as a custom cabinet builder, and that was his primary business, right? And so about 10 years into his business operation, he brought in factory cabinets as a secondary avenue of sales, and so he's been in operation 30 years. So you're thinking 30 years ago, he was building all those red oak cabinets, that they put in every house. And, the world has changed quite a bit in 30 years. And the custom cabinet business, I'm actually going to be winding down and out of the model. So, a few reasons for that. Number one, custom cabinets aren't as in high demand anymore as they once were. The price point for custom cabinetry, the personnel, the manpower, the skill sets, the overhead, all that kind of stuff in 2025 is damn near unmanageable, right? Because I inherited a workforce with the company, and that workforce is all at retirement age. So right now, one of the big things is to hustle, and backfill bodies in that business to kind of get them trained up with these guys that I've employing from the previous company. They're all already drawing Social Security. They're old and they're going to retire. So that's the biggest stress point right now, is getting it backfilled. So, but with that too, you got to alter the strategy, right? Because if if the business is labor intensive or labor heavy, right, you've got to kind of set up some systems or alter the business itself to be more systems based so that you eliminate some of that labor force as a requirement, right? I need this, I need it simplified, more strategic. And the way to do that is to scale factory sales, boost the installation force. And then I'm also bringing in a couple of other divisions of custom closet lines and commercial cabinetry. So
Yeah, you got your work cut out for you. But that seems like something that a lot of people are dealing with nowadays. I mean, we always hear that we can't even replace the amount of people that are retiring fast enough in the trades, and you're dealing with it firsthand right here. It's like you have entire companies of people that are retirement age or close, and
yep.
not enough people to replace them.
Yep. It's not, yeah,
It's crazy.
it's going to be a rough go for the next 30.
And I mean, one of the things you can do, and you already touched on this a little bit, is social media, like posting stuff on social media, like you're following, getting people kind of interested in these jobs and what you do and stuff is bringing interest, and maybe getting some of the younger generation to join the trades because it's needed and there's a high demand, or there's going to be a high demand at least at some point. So yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah, that's a weird facet too, because I've had this conversation with many people throughout the years about the labor force. You know, I was one talking about it a long time ago, well before I made any videos. But you know, you kind of have to evaluate a lot of the industry itself and look at, you know, the labor shortage is just the tip of the iceberg, right? It really is, because then you got to look at business practices. Why is it so hard to replace people? Well, then in my area, this isn't, you know, in large areas with heavy union bases and things like that, it's a different world. So just preface what I'm about to say with that. In my area, 95% of the contractor's employee workforce is a 1099 employee workforce. So it comes down to basic business practice. Are you going to operate your company as a company, right? Are you going to take care of your employees? Are you going to offer the proper owner, you know, providership of an employer where you're taking care of taxes and all that kind of stuff? Very expensive to operate. You know, I run all of my companies legit. Everything is W-2. It's very expensive to have a workforce, and that's why my price points are always higher in the tile business, because I'm running a real employee workforce. It costs a lot of money, you know, and if you want to retain employees, you have to pay them proper. And when you hear somebody's making, let's just say you hear somebody's making $30 an hour, right? That's not what it costs the business. It costs the business about 40, you know, or 45.
Yeah.
So you know, when you're pricing a job to you know, a family for a bathroom remodel, and they go, my God, it's high. You know, my God, that's high. Well, the costs are really crazy. They really are crazy to run a legitimate business.
Yeah.
And so the issue is you compete with all of the companies, all the guy with a truck and a trailer who are, if they have a workforce, they're all 1099 cash pay, you know, so they're able to kind of skirt around the pricing a lot, and they could be way more competitive. And so you
Just
deal
under
with
the
that kind of
table,
stuff.
or just under the table in general. So
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah,
lot
man.
of them. I mean, we recently had a guy that was kind of a roommate with one of our employees, and he's out of work right now because of the weather, the winter here.
Yeah.
And he's a roofer. For some reason, he was coming just to do concrete. I'm like, well, why don't you go find another roofing job? But that's beside the point. He
Mm-hmm.
was on under the table pay as a roofer. And I'm like, are you kidding me? We were all like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You're going to be up on a roof without any sort of protection
Nothing.
if you fall off that thing. It doesn't matter how much money you make. There's not enough money in the world to keep people there if they aren't going to be protected. But
Yep.
people keep doing it, and somehow they keep having workers, because I think a lot of the guys see the initial pay and they're like, oh man, that's awesome. And then when you can't go, you know, get a mortgage for a house or something, you can't go buy a house because you don't make any money
Right.
realistically,
Yeah. You
officially.
literally don't.
Yeah, as far as the government's concerned, you know.
Yeah.
It's an interesting workforce situation we have. I like how you pointed out the union part because we don't have that as much here either. So
Yep.
it's all non-union type stuff, and we deal with that a lot too. Like it costs. We're all W-2 employees where I'm at, and you compete with those people that don't have like any overhead, pay their guys
Yep.
cash per day, and it's hard. And we
Yeah, it's
almost have to
hard.
have minimums on our days. Like if there's a job that's too small, it's like, well, we have to make this amount of money. This is what it costs,
Well,
regardless of
people
size.
some people don't understand the concept of, I call it a door price. Like you don't drive up onto site unless it's worth this much. And the reason is that people think, well, that's ridiculous. That's so stupid. It would there are scenarios where it would cost me more to move equipment and men to a job site than it would be worth. And so that's where you kind of have to just differentiate yourself and really have a strategy for what your target is. You can't be a shoot from the hip, take anything there is just to generate cash flow. You really got to be strategic. Obviously there's times in your business where, hey, you're going to take L's and you got to take things just to keep cash flow moving, but it's got to be strategic about what you take.
Yeah, I mean, that's it's just so important. Like people don't understand the whole operating cost per day type thing. And I think that's where a lot of businesses fail. They don't have that figured out themselves. They don't know how much it costs them to operate every day, even if they're paying their guys cash. And maybe that's why they do. It's like if they don't have anything, they don't pay anybody anything. But it's like to get out the door, you have to be making this amount of money. Otherwise, you're literally paying them to go do their job.
Well, and remember too, I mean, there's a lot of men in business, but there's not a lot of businessmen, right? A wise man told me that a long time ago, and it made me think about what I'm doing every day. Like what is I'm running a business. I can't screw around. That's what it's about. So
How long are you typically on jobs? I mean, what's your typical size you go for? I mean, that's got to have some variation in the bathroom tile
huge.
world, right?
Yeah, huge variation because we do commercial tile, we do residential
Nice.
tile, we do, you know, probably 60% of our business is through GCs that I have business relationships with. So a lot of our work is tile ready where we can come in, the plans are already made. We come in and all we do is tile. We go in and prep and tile. And then the other portion of the business is me acting as a GC and performing full bathroom remodels, which part of my strategy with expanding the companies is to eliminate that aspect of it because I've been working for years to build relationships with GCs, and now I'm able to kind of make the majority of my revenue for that business through GCs, where I would call it quote unquote tile ready work, right? Where I can then build a skilled workforce that can go in, execute a plan because systems are in place, and they go in and knock it out. Whereas on bathroom remodels, I am a general contractor. And so, a lot of that work is thinking and planning and running and getting all this kind of stuff together, which is, I've done it for years. But if I'm going to leverage a workforce and put leadership in place and systems, I've got to eliminate those variables, right? I need to get it set up to where it's more strategic and I can send a workforce in with a plan, a skilled workforce, and they'll execute and the job is done. And so that's kind of the strategy moving forward for that company.
Yeah. It's more consistent, you know. I hear a lot of people kind of shitting on like GC work, like working for GCs because you can make more money doing homeowner type stuff, doing that,
Sure.
but it's interesting to hear you say you're moving away from it. Like we're almost, I'd say more than 90% GC work. Like we're working for GCs. So
Sure.
go, the job's ready, we form and pour. Like we don't even do very much dirt work for what we do for flat work. So it's like that works for us and it's consistent and we know what to expect. And then there's people out there that are like entirely homeowner, driveway tear out,
Yep.
that type of stuff. And that, I mean, I couldn't imagine trying to pay W-2 employees off of something like that because
Brutal.
constantly chasing leads all the time
And that's
to
the
get to that
issue,
point.
right? So when that company was my only company, it was fine, right? I mean, I work all the time anyway, and so it was fine for me to constantly be dialed into that, right? Where it's always lead generation, it's always customer work, it's always this, it's always that. And then I would fill in those gaps with contractor work. Now,
It's the other
it's
way
the
around, pretty
yep,
much.
because the GC work is so Kipp centric, right? It requires me at all times. That's one of the variables that I wanted to eliminate, because another wise man also told me you have to stop working in your business and start working on your business. So I think that's very critical. And when you relate yourself, and you have, let's say you have 14 hours a day of solid work time, right? As an entrepreneur, okay. I'm not one of those dudes. It's like you got to grind all the time, but you do have 14 hours available of working time. Okay. If you're spending all that in person trying to deal with clients, you're just trading time for dollars, right? So you have to be able to build the business to where it's set up more systematic, to where you can essentially make money while you sleep, not necessarily that detailed, but make money through systems and being able to put people in place using a brand that you've built with high quality service, high quality finishes and craftsmanship.
I think it does make sense a little bit more for people who are in that position of owner operator and don't want to scale out of it.
Yep.
And I think some people, I'm sure, do just enjoy what they do, so they want to do that.
Yep.
I mean, I see it all the time, and like the social media landscape has, yeah, we lost. Is it the Riverside or
No, it's me. It's hardware.
shoot? What was I saying? Lost my train of thought.
Or operators.
Yeah, I see. I mean, the social media landscape has like made everybody think that they need to grow and scale, and if you're a business owner but you're on the site all the time, like you're basically a piece of crap, like you're a dummy or whatever. But there's a lot of people that like it,
Yeah.
and I would almost consider myself one of those people. Like I'm not the business owner for our concrete deal, but I enjoy doing it, so I could see myself being in that position. I could see how you would want to be doing the work and then making more money essentially than if you were working for somebody else. So it kind of makes sense being that owner operator position, chasing those kind of homeowner client jobs instead of the general contractor. But I've always said that you kind of need to have both, right? So, and most people, I think, over time want to switch over to working for general contractors because, like you said, you're basically you're going to a tile ready job. Like if they've already done all of the prep, they do all the client dealings and all of the ordering and all that, and you show up and get a job done, and your guys get paid, and that's it.
Yep. Simplified.
Yeah.
And there is a to me there's a clear distinction between being a craftsman and a businessman, right? And if you're going to do both, you got to find a balance, and it's really hard to find that balance. For me, I'm more business growth centric and always have been. And so I've got crazy respect for the guys that will do owner operator for their entire career, because they're locked into a craft and they're really refining it and honing it down. And by the time they're 60 years old, dude, they're just so good. They're just killing it. But for me, I did that same thing for several years. Solopreneur, by myself, and just kind of built it up, and that was the game. But for me, it's just continuing to scale, because I do. I'm kind of stair stepping is what I'm doing, and then I'm working into something, right? Like I'm going long term,
Yeah.
because
How
go ahead.
so how long did you do the solopreneur stuff? Like how long have you been in the tile business?
Well, there's a complicated history. So
Uh,
I
Good.
did all of the apprentice level tile work. So let's see. I started. All right, we're gonna start having problems. Of course, hold
Yeah,
tight.
that's fine.
I've been having problems out of this A6400. We were having problems recording our podcast the other day.
Yeah. It's to be expected, honestly.
So I got into the trades out of basic necessity, right? I was a high school graduate, but I moved 600 miles away from home the day after I graduated high school and had like $500 in my pocket, and I had a tool belt, and that's all I had, but I was still 17. I couldn't get a real job, right? I like that was the thing. You needed a I moved to a very industrial town in western Kentucky, and it was all, hey, listen, if you're an unskilled guy, you go work in the factory. That's just what you do. And so I couldn't do that because I wasn't 18. So I worked as a lifeguard for a little while and then got onto a framing crew. And so I kind of got my back broke in the framing world, earned my stripes there, and then went to the inside after quite some
Yeah.
time.
How
And
long?
started learning. How long was I framing?
Yeah.
Probably 2 years, probably 2 years heavy. At that time, there was a lot of framing going on because we're next door to an army base, a big army base.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, we were at peak wartime at that point in time. So there was a large influx of troops, and so there was a bunch of homes need to be built. So we were just framing neighborhoods, just boom, boom, boom. And so after about 2 years of that, I was like, I think I've had enough of this shit. Low man. The first 6 months, all I did was hustle full skids of boards and
Yeah.
decking and packing. You earn your keep, and then I graduated to ridge runner. So whenever we were roofing,
Yeah.
when we were setting rafters, I was the dude on the peak, 3 stories up. This 19-year-old kid who was getting paid $7 an hour cash, dude.
Yeah.
There's no workman's comp if you fall off of
Nope.
this shit.
Nope.
And so after the hot Kentucky summers and the frigid Kentucky winters, a guy got fired off of another crew, and he was like, "Hey, I'm going to go start installing hardwood and tile for this flooring store." And I was like, "Dude, if you'll pay me $7.50 an hour, I'll come work for you." So I went to work for him, slinging hardwood and tile, and so I started learning those ropes. And I think we were kind of learning together. This guy was like 10 years older than I was, and he was just like, "Yeah, I'm just going to go do it and figure it out." So we learned hardwood and tile together, dude. And so I got to learn how to build showers the absolute wrong way. Oh my goodness.
Good thing about this platform is it's easy to edit.
Yeah, totally.
I
So
might edit those out.
yeah, you can edit those cutouts, but so yeah, I got to learn how to build showers the wrong way from the start, right? And then learned 10, 15 years later, or probably 10 years later, I was like, "Oh, that was completely wrong." And so now when I go like on social media, I'll see certain things and be like, "Ooh, dude, that's actually how I learned, and that's wrong." Like you shouldn't be doing that. But so fast forward from there, I'm 20 years old and my wife gets pregnant. So we were pregnant with our first child at 20, and I was like, "Man, dude, this construction isn't going to do it, right? I've got to go get some benefits and some health insurance and stuff. We're having a baby." So I go get me a gig in the factory. I'm working third shift, making radiators, and then still doing the construction gig in the daytime. So I would go to work we started at 11:30, had to be there at 11. I'd get there at 11. I'd work till 7. I'd go directly from there to the job site and work until 3, and then go back to my single wide trailer in the trailer park and go to sleep, and get up and do it all again.
Yeah, that's a
And did
rough.
did that for several years, man. And then I got to a point where I had gotten laid off from one company and went to work for another company, but I was on second shift. So I was doing construction daytime, then going to the factory gig at night, getting off midnight. But I started to grow with this company. It was actually a good company. And so as I grew, I ended up leaving construction and focusing on the corporate world. So I started to grow within that company. And just like I do with everything, I like to start at the bottom so I can learn the ropes. And then I like to try and compete and climb the ladder. And so that's what I did there. I kind of maxed myself out with no education, like with no furthered education. I couldn't go any further. I ended up as the production manager of the plant, you know, and I was all deeply involved in everything. And I reached a certain point, and once I realized that once I had accomplished that goal and there was nothing else that I could do after, and I was glass ceilinged, I was capped, I kind of had a mental breakdown, and we sold everything that we owned and moved to Florida for we lasted down there 7 months and then ended up coming back. And that's when I went into business for myself. So.
And then when you went into business for yourself, that was when you did the tile and I'm assuming flooring or something, right?
Yeah. So I went into business for myself, had a partner, and we were acting as a GC partnership, and we would do everything, right? It was very broad. We would do home additions, new builds, remodels, tile work, really multifaceted. Sorry, dude. Cameron to go to the shop. Wouldn't be a podcast without technical difficulties.
Yeah, every one of them has it.
Shit, where was
it? You were doing all of or you guys were doing everything, partner.
Yep.
Yes.
So we were partnered up and we did everything. And then he and I had some visionary different, you know, like we had different visions long term. I knew he was going to be a builder, and I didn't have a desire to be a builder, and he's really good at it, you know? And so it was a natural flow for him. And I was like, hey, why don't we I'm going to go do like bathroom specific stuff and you go be a builder. And so that's kind of how I split off and went totally on my own. And that's when Rocksteady Tile Company started, because I hyper focused and niched down to just bathroom remodels. And so when I did that, I was like, all right, so I'm a one-man show. What am I going to do? How do I compete with those truck and trailer guys? Because essentially I'm just a truck and trailer guy too, right? So how do you differentiate yourself? And so the idea was okay, so I built a brand around, considered myself a boutique shower builder. That's kind of how I marketed myself. That allowed me to target that tax bracket demographic that I was looking for. It made it kind of I do extremely high quality work. I offer extremely high quality service. I mean, 1-to-1, always there. I'm married to my work. No need for a written contract, because if you call me in 5 years, I'm coming, right? Like, you call me in 5 years and it's something to do with my job, I'll be there. What that allowed me to do was to build the brand around that. And then I reached a certain point with that business that I had maxed myself out, right? I had no more potential for revenue because I'm a data freak. And so what I did was I said, okay, I'm going to take 1 full year. I'm going to work every available work day. I'm going to limit my vacations. I'm going to max out my labor potential as one man, figure out what the revenue potential is so I can decide whether or not I want to scale the business, right? Whether I want to add guys and try and grow it a different way. So once I got the data and I saw what it was going to be, it's a good living. Right? It's good living. I could afford to feed my family. We had plenty of money for fun stuff. You know, you had a boat, you had this, that, do whatever you want. However, the understanding is that if I don't go to work for a week,
don't make money.
You don't make any money. So the natural answer to me was, all right, so I need to focus on scaling the business and be a business owner versus being a craftsman shower builder. And so I started to scale the business up. You know, I had been working with a couple of guys for a long time since they were young, mentored them through, and actually employed one of them for several years, and then brought them onto my team. The one who I had mentored into his own business, right? And he was doing his own thing. And then he came to work for me. And so from there, once we got that operation rolling, that's when social media came in and we started making videos.
That was my next question, is when did you start the social media and why, really?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, I have an inherent hatred for social media at a core level. All right. I think it's evil. I think it's bad for humans. I think it's especially bad for children. But we live in 2025 and I'm a realist and a pragmatic person. And I understand that the largest revenue source per capita is social media. And that means that's where all the attention is. So much so that I learned a ton off of social media, right? But I was never going to be implicit in spreading social media, right? Well, I was always a video hobbyist. I always made funny, stupid little videos, you know, and I'd send them to my couple of buddies and they'd laugh and I'd laugh and it was over. Well, I would make them and send them to my cousin down in Florida. And my cousin was like, dude, you have got to put this stuff on TikTok. And I said, hell no, I am not. I ain't touching TikTok. I ain't touching that Chinese shit. I ain't no way I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And she was like, dude, I'm telling you, you can make money. And I was like, how much money? You know, how much money can a guy make? And so she's actually the one that convinced me really to post the first video on TikTok. And then it kind of went from there.
And it was mainly like kind of funny content or work content, or kind of, what was that
The very
originally?
first video I posted was me dumping a bucket of thin set out in front of me, and the camera POV was behind me, so it looked like I was taking a shit.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, something
Yep.
stupid. And
Yep.
then we just took off from there. And what I figured out was that educational content is what brought us the most attention. And so, like when I would teach things about what I was doing, it's not that I know more than anybody. It was just I was showing you how I do something and trying to be extremely specific about it and intentional about what I'm saying so that you can understand and comprehend. And it did really well. And we were also able to make pretty entertaining content. And I like editing videos, so you know we can do some cool stuff with video editing and make some really cool looking shit. And that's what helped us out, I would say.
What do you edit your videos on?
A few different platforms. I use primarily CapCut. I mean, if you understand all the principles of what your desires are for creatively, you can pretty much do it with CapCut. For long form, I use DaVinci Resolve just for the UI, so I can do it all on the MacBook. And bear with me, dude.
It's all right. I
Time for
would
a
be worried
camera
about it.
upgrade.
Would be worried about it if it wasn't for this sweet new platform I got that
Yeah,
makes it easy.
easy edits.
So I use CapCut on my phone for almost everything, and I've messed around with it on my computer a little bit, and I have DaVinci Resolve as well. I think they both are laggy on my computer, but I'm kind of due for an upgrade on my computer. That's the only thing that's kept me from editing more on it. So I know a lot of people a lot of people get hung up on a lot of things, but that's one of the things that people get hung up on, is figuring out how to edit videos
Yeah.
for social media, and like, oh, what platform do I use? How do I do it? How do I know
Yep.
if it's a good video? It's like, just got to start trying things out. But a lot of people don't necessarily know that CapCut is so easy and
Yep.
easily accessible. More and more I talk to people, the more I find out they're using CapCut.
But yeah.
Have you tried it on your desktop? That's a question I had.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I have, and it works out better for if you have like a longer video, or if you're gonna try and implement more than just a couple of transitions and effects, right? Because now you're using the processing power of your computer versus your phone.
Yeah.
Because once you start throwing several effects on there, it's hard for an iPhone's powerful, dude. It's more powerful than what sent the damn rocket ships to the moon, but it's really hard to render out a lot of effects in a video on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm at a point where my phone's more powerful than my computer, so that's what's been holding me up. It's like I can add all the stuff to my phone and nothing happens. Like,
Yeah.
nothing slows it down, and I add two things to my computer and I can't even watch the video without it glitching. I'm like, all right, well, it's someday, so we'll
I
get there.
prefer to edit CapCut on iPad, right? Because I can use the Apple Pencil and you can see it a lot better. You got more processing power. You know, it's the workflow is pretty smooth on an iPad versus on the phone, because I'll fat finger stuff and I'm sitting there trying to draw out a timeline so I can add effects and cuts and stuff like that. But iPad's better.
Yeah, and I've got my iPad too, and I honestly forget how easy it is to use on there. I think my phone's a little bit faster still, but I don't have a very like fancy iPad.
But yeah, I think, you know, honestly, you were talking about, so I get the same questions and DMs, and which is something I do, man. I answer
Yeah,
DMs, and
yeah, yeah.
whether
You
that's a
do.
good thing or a bad thing,
Yeah,
and it takes up a lot of time. But a lot of folks ask that question, what do you use to edit? And what most people don't understand is it doesn't matter what you use to edit. It's, if you want to be a video maker, it's all up here, because you have to understand the concept of what makes a video. And that comes down to just general video production ideas, right? If you know what you want to do, all you have to do is figure out how to do it. But the most people don't understand what they want to do, so they don't even know where to start. So they're like, "Oh wow, this app will do it for me." But no, that's not the case. You have to have a concept of what you want. Just so happens I was a movie nerd growing up, right? Like, so I fancy good movie production and directors and things like that. So it was kind of natural for me because I would be like, all right, I want to do this scene from like Eye of the Tiger or from blah blah blah. I want to do it like that. And I can visually remember like what the cuts were in the video and all that kind of stuff. So it helps to have an idea, like be able to build a framework or a structure in your head of what you want to make, or you'll never make it at all if you don't do that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's exactly right, because a lot of people they'll be like, oh, I'm going to make a video. And then they just go and just like start doing random things to it without really having an idea. So like when what's made me realize what videos do well is when I'm thinking about what I'm going to in my final product before I've started recording. While I'm not that great at it yet, when I can plan out, like, let's say, like I do a lot of POV work content.
Yeah.
If I can think through the steps of the project beforehand and then take videos at certain times that are going to look good, even if it's just for 3 seconds, and just to get that for the final video, that's kind of the mindset shift you have to have. And then realizing that a lot of times the clips that you have in videos are going to be only 3 seconds. Like there's a lot of times I have, a whole minute long video that I only use 3 seconds of, and that's it. And then it's just discarded pretty much. So there's a whole new world to it, and it's getting harder and harder to catch people's attention too. So, of
course.
I mean, you just have to start, really.
Yep. Well, and that's the key to every algorithm. I mean, each one of these platforms have a different algorithm, but they're simplistic in ideology, right?
Yeah.
Like they're simple. They're very, golly, see me trip out on this damn camera, dude. Spend all this money. You spend all this money and then screws around on you. So we were on, where were we at, man?
I just had it. Algorithms.
Oh yeah. So every platform has a different algorithm, but the key is all you have to do is catch their attention at the very beginning, right? You got to catch it. And then you have to recapture it about 10 seconds in. Okay. So if I catch it, because you got to remember it's muscle memory for people to scroll, right? So you got to catch them in the first 3 seconds, and then they're going to stop. Think about your own habits. They're going to stop, right? And they're going to evaluate. And it takes X amount of time for your neurons to fire for you to decide whether or not you want to stay there. So you're going to catch them in the first 3. It takes them about 5 seconds to decide. So now at second 8, you got to drop something else in there to keep them. Once you keep them there, you got them, right? And it counts in the algorithm and pushes you further.
Yeah. I was when I very first started like really editing stuff, because I've been posting for kind of a long time. I mean, relatively like a few years of just posting things, like videos of me talking, that type of stuff, getting used to social media. And when I very first started posting and really editing and planning, I mean, I think doing 3-second clips of like, that's it throughout the whole video, changing, doing transitions, having text on there. And that's how I was keeping people's attention. I think the second video I did in that style got like 3 million views on it. And I've only gotten up to that since like once or twice. But that was mind blowing for me, because I was like, dang, I just made this video, and it took me hardly any time to do, because I took all of my videos I had and I just started,
Clipping them?
split, cut, delete, like all that stuff through there, and shorten them down to 3 seconds, add transitions, make sure that they all kind of seam together. Like if I'm moving away from something, like the transition moves into me, doing the same movement, but in a different clip, that type of stuff. Like when I very first started doing that, I was like, this is crazy. And it actually isn't that bad if you're not overthinking it. Like you have to plan, but you can't over complicate the process, because what all you're trying to do is keep people's focus, which, yeah, it's hard. It's hard nowadays. But
Yeah, and then you gotta, then you gotta think about it. And so a lot of times I overanalyze all this stuff, and I put so much effort into the data and understanding things, and then the creative inside of me gets really pissed off at myself, right? Like I get so upset with myself that, dude, you're being a stupid nerd about it. Like just be creative, right? And then you go. The disappointing part of that is though you go be really creative and then it does nothing.
yeah,
It does nothing.
yeah,
But when you put together a very scientifically strategized 3 seconds here, boom, 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 and it
yeah,
really in the grand scheme of things, you didn't do shit but clip up a bunch of videos nonsense and it performs so well, it used to make me angry. I'd be like,
yes,
God, dude. I could put 3 days of planning and filming and editing into a video and get 500 views. And
yeah,
then I made a video just to prove the theory that it was
mhm.
nonsense. I made it and it got 80.4 million views or something like that. And I was like, see, this is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And then you get to the high view numbers. Like first time you hit 1 million views, you're like, oh man,
So
oh
yeah, man.
man, I
Hey, so tell me about you, dude. I don't know much about you. You got a family?
yeah, yeah. I was laughing when you were telling your story because we just had our first kid
Yeah,
this year. This year. So
that's
while we were
awesome,
building
man.
the house, having a baby all at the same time, it's just
Well, that's
busy, busy, busy. I'm a little bit behind you. I'm almost 27, so
oh, okay. There you go.
but
Well, you're
yeah.
just getting fired up.
Yeah, yeah. We yeah, been married for 3 years now. 3 years. So we had our little baby boy in July, end of July.
It's literally the most rewarding thing, the
Yeah.
most challenging thing, but the most rewarding.
Yeah, no, it's fun. I've enjoyed every minute that I have at home,
Yeah.
especially because we were in the middle of building the house when he was born. So I was going from work straight up to the house to work until dark pretty much and go home and sleep and then get back at it. So it was pretty
Enjoy
sucky.
those clusters of time, right? And that's one thing that reflecting back, you can parcel out different stages of life for this kid and like mental development, dude. And there's
Yeah.
certain times that are just you can look back and you go, man, that was a challenging couple of years. But there are certain time frames where you're like, dude, that was the coolest 3 years of that kid's life. Like
Yeah.
with my daughters, it was that 1 to 4 range where they're still just super little cute things, and you can just mess with them and stuff. And that's all they do. And then you get teenage girls, and then it's like, dude, all right. I've got one graduating here in a couple of months, and then her sister's going into high school right behind her, so they're 4 years apart.
Wow. Yeah, that's a fun age. That is a
Uh-huh.
fun time.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no,
I
they're
had
great.
the
They're great humans. My oldest is very, very hard headed, and that's gonna serve her so well. Like, so certain characteristics that you'll put into your children will be a pain in your ass, right? But it'll serve them so well as adults, having those determinations and those, because a strong headed child, they're a pain in the ass at home. I was one of them, and but they end up being like the most self-sufficient and driven and blah 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 humans as an adult, right? You just got to try not to fuck them up too bad. That way those characteristics serve them well and they're not
yeah.
focused on negative stuff.
Well, that's something that um like on my podcast, I've kind of taken a bunch of different turns because really my podcast has been about just having a place that I can talk about what I want. And like I started it with the trade focus. I went to college, electrical engineering, but I grew up doing concrete and kind of decided I wanted to stay doing concrete. Kind of
Yeah.
almost when I got done with electrical engineering, almost there, probably a year or so away from my degree. And yeah, anyway, so I started the podcast and I've just been like going off on random things like health and fitness and lifestyle. But we so I had a strain of my podcast that I was talking about things like writing your own story Like, because we all have throughout our childhood these stories that we tell ourselves that we've observed and taken in from people around us. Like, you're not going to be successful if you don't go to college, or like, say your parents grew up in the Great Depression, they have this idea about money, it gets passed on to you. Now you're like scarcity mindset behind it, that all that type of stuff. So like how we interact with our kids is so important because they take all that stuff and internalize it, and they'll have this mindset about money that could be completely messed up because you were super like afraid to go try anything new because you maybe had a bad experience. Maybe your parents had a bad experience and it was internalized to you, and then it gets passed on to them. So it's super crazy. And you start like picking apart all of these things. It's like, well, why should I do this? Like, we have all these things in our mind. It's like, you should do this, you should do that. And then you start thinking about why, because they're just in there. They're just in your head. And it's just super interesting to see how that happens.
Yeah.
And you just pick that up as children. Like,
sometimes, but a lot of it is environmental too.
Yeah,
other
it could
than
be
your
too.
parents.
Yeah. From teachers.
My parents were nothing like me.
Yeah.
My father was military, and my mother was an admin worker at she was a travel agent. So
Yeah.
And they grew up.
I mean, yeah.
They were my father. He was, Army dude. There was no risk as far as investment, business, anything like that.
Yeah.
But I was around a lot of people that were, I had a friend whose father, I still remember to this day, I had a friend whose father made his small fortune off of building and selling businesses. It always intrigued me. He would take a company, he would build it. One of them was a fiberglass pool company. Started it from scratch, started fabricating and installing fiberglass pools, turned it into a successful company, sold that bitch, made mega bucks. And he would take that and he would start another company, build it up, sell it. And I was always like, how does somebody do that? How do they do that? And then I was like, you know what? I can probably do something like that too.
Yeah. And that's what it takes too. It's like you get these things from anybody around you. You can pick them up at any point in time. And I mean, your friends could have some warped idea of what it means to live in this country, and you could just like internalize that somehow because of what your friends thought. It's like these experiences are almost like shared experiences and get passed on to people, and being conscious of how that's happening to your kids is pretty important too. So, I mean, being mindful that way I think it's hard. So a lot of people don't do that. They just kind of get like lost in the motion.
Yep.
Day to day.
I think it's easier. I think it's easier to screw your kids up than it is to influence them for good. Right. So that's why I say just try not to screw them up too bad. Okay. Yeah. So you're going to there's going to be things about you that you really don't want to pass along that you really just can't help. Right. There's just going to be some of those traits. But, for me, what I'm hoping is that my kids see what I was able to accomplish through determination and hard work and bootstrapping my entire life, and show them and teach them the confidence to do stuff like that on their own. It's like you don't need somebody to hand it to you. You don't need a degree to do it. You don't need any of that. You have the most powerful tool in the world right now as a teenager and young adult, and that's the internet, right? I didn't have that. I didn't have that at all. So had I had the internet at that age, there's no telling what would have happened. Who knows? Yeah. So that's what I'm hoping to instill in them. They still get So yeah, I'm hoping to just influence them the right way in the right areas, right? I don't want my kids to be just like me. There's a lot of things, everybody has things about them that they don't like. So I never want my kids to be just like me, but there are certain character traits that I would like to pass along. One of them would be that you are in control of your life, right? You don't need to be dependent upon anybody else. One of the most critical things I want to pass along to them is critical thinking and thinking for yourself, and not allowing yourself to be influenced by someone just because their tongue is sharp, just because they talk well or hold a position of power. I always teach distrust in power, and structure and government, things like that. That's kind of my thing. But
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a lot of crazy stuff that I don't want them to be, it's just
Yeah.
stuff like that. But
Exactly. That's super important though. Teaching critical thinking is not very common sense is not very common nowadays. So
it's lacking, that's for sure.
yeah. I mean, you see it on social media a lot, the short attention spans. Like I had a video the other day that people didn't listen to the whole thing, and I can tell because of the way the comments are laid out, and people thinking I'm attacking people for some reason, and I'm like, I had to almost just turn my comments off, like just not allow comments from people I don't know on there, because every single one of them was like, I could tell you only listened like 10 seconds of this video.
Oh, you got
Like
to embrace it, dude. You
it
got to
doesn't even
embrace
make
it.
sense.
You got to embrace the suck, and you got to talk shit back
Yeah.
to them, dude. It
Yeah.
worked.
Well, it's like, it was interesting. People thought I was attacking Hispanic people in the video. And I'm like, I like Hispanic people. I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, and in my caption, like, it says I speak Spanish, and people are like, how many languages do you speak? One. And I'm like, what is going on here? Don't
People
read
are
the
idiots, dude.
tiny caption. It's the first sentence. Don't listen to anything past the 10 seconds of the 30-second clip. I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah, there's some dude. The internet is full of it, man. That's why I always just. Oh my goodness.
Telling you,
My partner, well, my producer, he's about 2 years older than you. He's gonna understand right now. Devin, the one you see in a lot of my videos.
yeah.
He's a little just a hair older than you. He'll understand my frustration when he watches this podcast, because I've been getting so pissed at this camera. We're running a 3-camera setup, and this one camera is really pissing me. Man, I've forgotten where we're at there.
The social media, people are dumb comments. So that's one thing I wanted to talk to you about. It's like a lot of people don't understand how annoying it is to be on social media, because everybody's like a little troll hater person, and they do it not even genuine. They just freaking poke at you, and it takes a lot to not get pissed off at it. Like, be like, what is wrong with you people? Because they're doing it on purpose. They're doing it on purpose to be agitators. Because it's easier from behind a screen. It's like when you're in a car and someone cuts you off and you freaking curse them, and then like, would you do that if they were right in front of you though? No, probably not.
Never. Well, so I think, personally, I think you have to take kind of a twisted sense of humor approach to it.
Yeah.
I find it funny, personally. Like, I have a dark, shitty, sarcastic sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find it very funny when somebody blatantly talks shit and they're trolling, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why I'll always fire back at them just for fun. I've always been kind of witty, and so I'll just jump back at them. The ones that really make me laugh are the ones that are blatantly stupid. Like that.
So many of them.
Either they don't understand, like don't have critical thinking skills, can't read, or don't have an attention span long enough to even comprehend what's going on. That shit makes me chuckle. It just does. And so I get a kick out of it a lot of times. Now, sometimes I won't be in the mood for it. And so a lot of times, like, if I'm not in the mood for social media, I'll keep myself from getting on there, because there's certain things, like I'll read it, and if I'm not really in the headspace to deal with that, because I need to approach it with a comical standpoint, because if I get serious, I'm not going to be very pleasant, and then that's, nobody wants to see that. Like, nobody wants to see somebody being an asshole, and I don't want to be an asshole. So if I'm not in the headspace for it, or I know I'm in the mood to like pop off at somebody, which happens, I'll just refrain from getting on there, because it won't be productive. But if I'm in a good space where I'm happy go lucky, I'll get on there and talk some shit. Let's see what we got here.
Well, we can close out after this. We'll talk a little bit more about social media. That's
Yes.
like once you get into building an audience, it's like you just have those people.
You know what? Honestly, I think I've got to continue troubleshooting this thing, but I think I've got a bad battery connector. It's an aftermarket battery connector for hardwiring.
Mhm.
That's what it is. So sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, you get into building your audience and stuff, and you just happens. You just come across it. And I don't think a lot of people are able to handle it either. So
Yeah.
like I find myself getting really annoyed at people's comments, even when I know they're being like I laugh at first and then it just like sits there in my mind and like just stews. And I'm like, I don't want to respond and be an asshole for no reason. I
Yeah.
don't really want to say like a sarcastic thing because it'll probably come off like I'm being an asshole. But I kind of do. But it's like it's stuff like that that makes me not really want to be on there.
Yeah.
And it really is just like we don't have this thing anymore where you have the face-to-face interaction, and if you say something that pisses someone off, they're gonna punch you in the face. Like we just have this people hiding behind a screen and doing that and getting away with it because nobody's gonna come after them. It's like, what are they gonna do? Like a lot of these people they have private profiles and no followers, you know?
Yeah. I thought, well, you just got to approach it like that, man. Like to me, I approach it as it's not real life.
Yeah.
It's not real life because you would never dream of walking up to me and saying some crazy shit like that. You know, you would never dream because number one,
That tile looks like ass. Like what are you even
right.
doing? Like
Yeah,
nobody's doing that.
nobody would do that. Number one, because I'm not going to be in a scenario where that would present itself,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
nobody's going to do that. And then number two, you know, you're liable to get beat up. I've got a group of guys, whatever, man. You know, you would never do that. And so you got to treat it like not real life. Yeah. So like you're saying, where you get that shit and it gets in your mind, that's on you. You got to let that shit go.
I know. I'm aware of that. That's like it sits there and like I'm trying to not let it bug me, and I'm like, yeah, the person's dumb. God, they freaking what an idiot. And then it just sits there and continues going on. And yeah,
for me, it turns into a game. Like it turned into a shit talking game because I grew up, you had to shit talk. Like you had to. If you didn't, you lose. And I'm not a loser. So the game is to win. And so if the game is talking shit, we can play that game and I'll probably win. And really, just like any good comedian will tell you, the guy who has the mic wins, right? So if you come on the page and I just dog you out, like with a funny side to it, everybody thinks it's funny, and then you get to go home. Like it's over. So if you can win the shit talking, then you kind of win it all.
Yeah. I think I wanted to ask you one more thing kind of before we get closed out here. So we were talking beforehand about your you had a business for creators. Kind of, I think it'd be beneficial for some people to kind of learn a little bit about how you can actually turn a social media following into a business, I guess, or even just an extra source of revenue, because that's something that a lot of people don't understand at all. Like they don't realize that you can have a big following and actually have collaborations where you make money.
Yeah, so there's multiple ways you can earn money online, and any good Google search will teach you, but I'll tell you about it too. You can make money, number one, so the different platforms have different ways of making money. TikTok, you can make money on views as long as TikTok is around. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah. It's up in the air, but that's just like anything. It's asking me for $2,000. Let's see. So you can make money on views on TikTok, and but that's about the extent of TikTok. You can do TikTok Shop and make like a quasi affiliate marketing sort of income there, but that's going to be your entire channel, right? You're not going to be a content creator and do TikTok Shop. There's a differentiation. You're either going to essentially be a TikTok Shop affiliate marketer account, and you know TikTok Shop loves that because they push that out more so than they do creators because they make a lot of money through TikTok Shop.
Yeah.
However, if you can make some good viewable content that gets good views and you're in the TikTok creator program and you're making your videos a minute long, you can earn an RPM on TikTok. So, and if it's a US based audience, you get a high RPM and you make decent money. So you could bring in some money every month through TikTok. Instagram, the plus side of Instagram is that Instagram's UI and the engineering behind Instagram is designed for community. Okay, so it's set up to where DMs are easy, comments are easy, comment threads are easy. And so that fosters an environment where you have community. And anytime you have community, you're able to gather attention from groups of people. And if you can gather groups of people's attention and get numbers behind it, the entire world runs on marketing. That's what everything is. And so if you have a number of followers, there are brands who sell things that will pay you to promote their products or services in front of your audience. That is.
I'll leave a couple of these in here so that
Yeah, so they can see.
what's his face? So that everybody can see like what we're dealing with.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God. So yeah, so anytime you have an audience, marketers want to pay you to put their product in front of people. And in 2025, I'll call it legacy marketing, right? Legacy advertising. You're talking TV, print, newspapers, magazine. That is dead. That is as dead as 3-channel television, man. So the new world of advertising is social media. Ever since Web 2.0, whenever Facebook changed over, MySpace went away, and it went to this grouping and newsfeed based, algorithmic based, suck you into a screen, the negative aspect of social media and engineering. Ever since it went to that, marketers have a field day there. And so you can make, as a content creator, you can make a fair amount of money on the side, or you can make a full-time living off of it if you dedicate yourself to that sort of thing. Uh, guys in the trades, the trades are just now catching up. Brands in the trades are just now catching up. And that's when I started that business for helping out other influencers as one of the very first ones, right? There's a couple of other ones, but I was one of the very first ones. And getting face to face with these brands and convincing them that this is the new way and you have to give up the legacy advertising is probably the most difficult market in the world, right? Because these guys, just like most tradesmen, a lot of these tool company guys, they were tradesmen too, And so convincing them, old crusty tradesmen, to change anything, if you work in the trades, you understand what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
And so convincing them to pay people who make content online is difficult because they go, who the hell, what damn videos, get out of here. But the reality of it is there are entire companies that make their entire living off of selling things to people who are glued to their screen, right? And you've got the positive aspect of it, which is the community base, where somebody's following somebody because they want to learn from them. And so you've got that aspect of it. And then you've got the engineering and the social engineering side behind the social media that keeps people locked in. All of those added up together are a marketer's paradise, right? So if you're a regular content creator who's serious about it, growing a following and being consistent and all that kind of things, man, you can make yourself very, very presentable to brands and other marketers. Very nice.
It's super interesting. So that's like the main way on Instagram.
Yeah, brand deals, right? You can earn money per views on Instagram, but I'm not monetized on Instagram. You have to, it's an invite only situation where you have to accomplish certain goals and these challenges and bonuses that they offer in order to get invited to the program. And from what I understand, I don't personally know this, but the RPM is much lower on Instagram than it is on TikTok. So creators on Instagram aren't making that much per view in that program on Instagram. So most of the money on IG comes through brand deals.
And Facebook, you get some pay for views on there.
You do. So the
Yeah.
payout for views on Facebook is very generous. You know, you just have to get in that program, get monetized. The one key thing to remember on Facebook is that even though it's tied to Instagram through business affiliation, if you're sharing your content, like if you're double posting, like if you post to Instagram and have it set up to where it posts to your business page on Facebook, if you post your video there and you're monetized on it on Facebook, if it has music from the Instagram music catalog, you will get demonetized. I'm telling you from experience because I'm demonetized on Facebook because I was trying to build systems to make my life easier. I was just going to double post. I got, great engagement and views on Facebook and was, booming with views over there. And then all of a sudden I got hit with a bunch of copyright deals on Facebook and they pulled my monetization. And there is nobody that you can just call over at Facebook to talk about it. You can dispute it. You can do this. You can blah, blah, blah. Good luck. You ain't getting it back, so I'm demonetized there. I'm not monetized on Instagram and not for anything bad. It was just, I was double sharing the videos and Facebook doesn't have the same license agreements that Instagram does, even though they're owned by the same company.
Interesting.
Yeah. So on Facebook, you'll get demonetized for using Instagram music. But so what you need to do is you need to post on Instagram separate and then go over to Facebook. And if you want to use music from their library. That's all there is to it.
Cool. I don't even know what mine looks like. I think I have well, anyways, I don't get that. I don't focus that much on Facebook. It's like I almost feel like you need to focus on kind of one platform first.
Well,
Figure
it's
out how that
very
works,
difficult
but
to grow on multiple at the same time. It really is. I started on TikTok and then we got really, I think all the general TikTok creators got shafted once TikTok Shop was introduced because TikTok, whenever they launched TikTok Shop, they changed the algorithm to promote only TikTok Shop stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, they changed the algorithm and they promoted only TikTok Shop. So guys like me who didn't have mega followings, I think I had like 50,000 on TikTok or something at that time. I just wasn't getting any views no matter what I did, So we weren't earning anything there. So that's when I switched to Instagram and started growing Instagram and was able to grow 100,000 followers in about a year and a half on Instagram.
Crazy.
And that was a lot of grinding, man. That was a lot of work to do.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm at a place. Okay, so it's like I grew a decent little following, and now I've got this other company. So I'm having to kind of take a break from social media, not fully, but just not posting quite as much. And I got to focus on this stuff so that I can kind of change the content because we're actually shifting our content model to long form educational content through YouTube. So
Yeah.
with the company that I purchased I've got another warehouse. I've got 2 warehouses now. And so I'm setting up a full studio set for build outs so that I can do long form educational content, right? So full length tutorials in detail on building a shower. I'm going to do it right there in the studio, and how to install a backsplash or how to do this or blah, 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 so
That's
that'll be
super
pretty cool. Yeah.
Super cool. And you got your podcast also.
Yep. So
kind of rolling out.
we've been starting the podcast, shaking out all the hardware issues. I mean, you're seeing some of them that we're dealing with, right? So the studio is set up. Everything's going well. We've recorded several sessions. We've been recording every weekend. We're just compiling a bunch of footage and going back through. One of the other things, too, that I'm doing is Devin, who is my employee in the tile company, he's shown an extreme amount of interest in video production, and he likes that kind of stuff. He actually assists in making a lot of videos for the social channels as well. I'm investing in him to be the producer of the podcast. So he wants to learn that. So I bought him all the equipment. I bought him a MacBook. I'm doing this, I'm doing that to set him up to where it's an investment in him to where he can develop those skills to do that editing. He's going to take a load off of me as far as for moving forward and some of the challenges that we're going to face. And that will also be an investment in him to where he can have a vested interest in the YouTube channel moving forward as a partner. That's one thing that I've always believed in is reinvesting in your guys and anybody that is on your team, right? If they're not worth investing in, then that you don't need to have them. So for me, that's what I do. I reinvest in those men, and that way they can better me and better themselves and better the company. And, you know, it's just a big, in corporate bullshit talk, they would call that symbiosis, you know, so but for me, it's just the right thing to do. You know, we're all grown men and I want you to do well. You want me to do well. The only way for us to do that shit is together. It's really hard. It's really hard to do this world alone. So you really got to have some good men around you, and you got to invest in those men, and you got to be willing to sacrifice and provide for those men. So
I think that's about best thing he could have said to kind of end this off on. So unless you got anything else to add, that sounds like a
man.
good stopping point so we don't see you throw your computer or something.
Leave that in. Leave that in. Shit. I tell you what, man, some days you fool with this tech stuff and it just, everything goes so smooth and you think, wow, man, this is really cool. And then sometimes you have these sorts of issues that are just like, man, I tell you what, I could throw this shit across the room.
When I was starting my podcast, I had 3 or 4 experiences or days where I was like, you know what, I don't think I want to do this, because it was problem after problem, and I'm just like, you know, this isn't working. I think the first time I did a podcast and it didn't record, or I lost it or whatever, I was like,
yeah, what a knife in the heart, man. Well, yeah, man, I appreciate your time. Good chatting with you, dude. Good to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you.
I've been watching your content, watching your podcast clips and stuff. So I'm excited for you. I'm excited to see what you do, see what you and you.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
I think you guys are pretty serious fellas, you know, so it's cool to watch that kind of aspect of it. So that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, we're having some fun with it, being serious.
Yeah.
So the two of us are, and he was interested in getting going on this as well, and that's part of it. So finding somebody that also wants to.
Jesse's going to be a good hand in that, man.
Yep.
He's a very, you know, he's a serious guy, right? He's got his following knows him for that. I think he advocates for the right things, and I like his content style, so it'll do well.
It's starting to, but I've also been putting a lot more work into it than I have the last few months.
That's what it takes, baby.
I've had more times. Anyways, appreciate you, Kipp. And
yes, sir.
We'll have to do another one once you get your camera stuff figured out.
Yeah, no shit, man. All right, man. Well, have a great night. It's great to meet you.
You too. Yep.
Stay in touch, man.
Yep.